And we also want to welcome in our next guest now. So the MeToo campaign has sparked, as we were talking about earlier, an entire movement of women speaking out against workplace harassment and assault. But how much of the responsibility is on the shoulders of HR? Joining us now is JAIME KLEIN, founder and president of Inspire HR. JAIME, it's great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So what role do you think HR plays? Everyone knows traditionally what HR is, but of course, with all of the allegations that we've seen coming forward with these companies now, what is the crucial role of HR?
Sure, I really see HR as the first responder. So when someone is brave enough to come forward and tell their truth, I think both the body language and words that the HR community uses really sets the tone. They also really have a strategic role to make sure that their organization has a zero tolerance policy for any type of harassment and discrimination, and that there is a no retaliation policy for anyone who does come forward.
We've seen statistics too, a recent survey by Cosmo and SurveyMonkey saying that among those that have been sexually harassed, 17 to 20% of them do not feel comfortable coming forward. And of course that could be for a variety of reasons.
Sure.
But in terms of communication, even getting the message out there before someone comes to you, what are effective ways to do that?
Yes, and 98% of companies here in the US do have these policies in place, but all this harassment is happening. I think the issue is that people still do not feel safe because they then might have seen leaders still do inappropriate things, so it doesn't matter that the policies are in place. So I think that what people need to do is reach out if they don't feel comfortable, even with HR, reach out to another leader in the organization or a mentor.
And how important too is it the conversation between different HR reps to make sure that the company, the culture is protected, any of the people that come forward, that they are protected as well? Is there communication, key communication that needs to happen between each of the reps? Absolutely,
and I think that when HR is speaking, they're supposed to be having conversations along the lines of, you know, X incident happened and we're going to make sure that that person is that an investigation happens, that there's remediation. What we don't want to do is have them say, let's just transfer that person to another office. That is 100% not the answer. We need to signal that when things happen, there's going to be action, and then that will have a kind of a contagious culture of making the office feel safer for women in any marginalized group.
How that sort of brings me to my point, which is how important is it to have HR be a true safe space at the company where someone can feel comfortable to come forward and not have their identity compromised or anything else compromised? I know in the past, HR hasn't always been sort of an independent org within some of these companies, and people would feel repercussions via HR departments. What are best practices for sort of making HR a truly independent sort of organization within the broader organization?
I think it really is about the leaders that HR work for. If the leadership is signaling that HR is that safe space, I think that is how it will be very much set up. Other organizations have gone ahead and set up, whether it's whistleblower hotlines or ombudspersons, if HR cannot play that role, but a good HR department is able to really be at that crossroads of meeting the organization's need, insulating them from risk, and also making sure it is a safe space for employees. But again, HR is the first responders, and that first reaction really sets the tone.
So how do we hold leaders to that point, business leaders, who are predominantly white males today?
Absolutely.
How do we hold them accountable?
Well, I feel like what gets measured gets done. So if leaders understand that there's going to be a true ROI, a true impact to their finances, I think that that's real. And we've seen that recently across every industry, that no one wants to affiliate themselves with a brand that is having predators in leadership roles. And we've seen that happen again and again. So what we want to make sure is that leaders understand they need to set the tone, make sure that no marginalized group, especially now women, are treated poorly.
Do you think the economic incentive is strong enough today, though? Like, I understand that you want them doing this for a positive reason, but doesn't there need to be a stick as well as a carrot here?
I think we're just starting to see that, and we can look across industries again of advertisers wanting to pull away from certain media outlets that had leaders or anchors who were in potentially predator roles. We also have seen just recently yesterday that the automotive industry revealed that on the factory floor, again, a totally different industry, that this has gone on for quite some time. The other piece of the puzzle is having more women in leadership roles, right? So whether, no matter the office setting, right, whether it's a box store or a boardroom, if a woman is treated appropriately and they can reach out to a female leader and speak their truth, I think that is a more comfortable environment.
Have there been statistics that have shown that that is an effective way to try to curb what we've seen happen?
I can't pull a number to my mind now, but what I will say is that anecdotally, again, if you work at a box store and you're in the break room and Bob from finance, pinches you, you're going to be more comfortable going to your store manager if that store manager is Tanya or Nicole, rather than it being Bob or Tom, right? No woman on the planet has not experienced this firsthand.
Do you think HR departments have been surprised by the amount of press that there has been about this?
Yes. And
why is that?
Surprised in terms of people being concerned about going to HR, or just the whole people reporting in general?
Both, I guess. The stories that we've seen come to light, of course, via the news media, and then also to the statistics that we've mentioned about how people sometimes are scared to go to HR.
Absolutely. So to the first point, I think that HR is not surprised that people are coming forward. I think that the floodgates have opened, and every organization that we're talking to, that we're all seeing, is very much having their inbox kind of blow up with people that want to tell their story, and tell their story about things that didn't just happen in November, but in some cases happened 20 years ago. People, I think, have repressed a lot of stuff that has been discussed through the years, and now it's time to really get closure on those things. So HR has been very busy recently. In terms of HR being surprised by the reaction, I think that the strong HR departments that I know have been doing the right thing all along, but this is a moment in time where every HR executive, no matter of level, needs to make sure that they have these policies in place, look for ways to get more female leaders in these roles. I think that's key to move the needle. And third, make sure that there's a culture at the top of the house that no marginalized group can ever be made fun of. Again, banter, locker room banter, just a zero tolerance for it. Look, everyone wants to look up 2 to 3 levels and see someone that reminds them of their fabulous self. So if organizations want to bring in top talent, they need to make sure that there's diversity at the top. And again, the numbers show stronger diversity typically leads to better financial results.
From an HR perspective, how do you handle an allegation coming forward that happened 20 years ago, a decade ago, 5 years ago versus something?
Is there a statute of limitations on these things to that point?
Typically, the human experience, what I've experienced the last 60 days is that there is not a statute. Organizations have reached out to us and said, can you help us? Because we've had someone who's still an employee here who had something happen 20 years ago. And what we've done is an investigation. There's a very specific process where we ask the same questions within a 360-degree circle, that person's leader, peer, and subordinate. And we look for the spoken, the unspoken, and the body language.
But clearly if we went to our grandparents, this wouldn't apply, right? Like, they grew up in a different generation with different mores, and a little bit the goalposts have shifted.
Sure, of
and
course.
some people are getting caught in the kerfuffle. I mean, when you're a sexual predator, it's sort of one thing.
Of course,
but like
there's borderline cases.
there are borderline cases where what was acceptable 40, 50 years ago is just totally unacceptable today. So parsing that out is also part of the challenge, I would imagine.
Yes, and the cases that I'm talking about are things that were very black and white. Where it was,
there's no question.
But I think that there is a gray area, and I think it is very hard to go back in time and assess things with our modern 2017 lens. But I think that HR professionals and leaders, they have to use their discretion. The reality is, where there's smoke, there's fire. And typically, if someone has had questionable behaviors for a long time, those things are just in form in 2017.
Yeah, my expression that I like to use for that same point is there's never only one cockroach. Thanks, JAIME KLEIN, founder and president at Inspire HR. We appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you.